Welcome to Gaining the Technology Leadership Edge, a podcast for tech executives. We provide strategies and tactics to help executives succeed and further their career goals. With interviews from industry experts, leaders, and innovators, this show will surely get you on the edge of your seat with thought-provoking advice on how to stay ahead of the competition. Welcome to Gaining the Technology Leadership Edge, a podcast exploring the latest trends, strategies, and insights into technology leadership. We'll discuss the most important topics and ideas shaping the industry today, from emerging technologies to digital transformation and beyond. Join us to learn all the juicy secrets of the tech leaders, their biggest successes and failures on our quest for gaining that all-important technology edge. Are you ready? Let's get started. Our guest today is Jeff Hines. Jeff is a successful, trusted sales executive, passionate about helping other sales professionals lead and win. He has excellent leadership skills and developing high-growth sales teams, as demonstrated in his 30-plus year career. Jeff helps companies who need to level up their selling organization by collaborating and coaching leadership and transformational strategies that accelerate revenue targets. He is skilled in helping companies attract and hire top sales talent, and his proven process brings 92% predictive accuracy in identifying A sales players. Jeff has a wealth of knowledge in helping cybersecurity, SaaS, and IT companies grow revenue and profit. Data shows that less than half of the sales contributors on a team make quota year over year. Jeff has the expertise and experience to overcome this challenge with predictive and demonstrative results. Welcome to the show, Jeff.
Hey, thank you, Mike. Thank you for that nice introduction, and looking forward to today's discussion.
Yeah, so tell me, who is it that you help?
So we have two offerings, Mike. Let me hit it with a broad stroke first. And the first is we help CEOs, presidents, and CROs, and typically in mid-sized companies who are tired of sales professionals saying they can produce, but don't. And then therefore they consistently do not hit the revenue targets. So what we do is we help them by doing an MRI on their current sales team and identify those gaps and deficiencies that are preventing them from excelling revenue and finding that incremental revenue that the company is looking for. The second thing we offer, and which will be the focus of today's conversation, is eliminating sales mishires. And we do this through a time-tested and proven hiring process that yields that 92% predictive validity that you mentioned there at the end.
Now, does this approach work regardless of the industry the company is in?
Yes, we're industry agnostic. So you have a sales team and you need help with, as I shared, an MRI and evaluating that team to identify the gaps and deficiencies and how to level them up. That's one thing we offer. And then the same thing with the sales candidate assessment. And that second offer is really eliminating those sales mishires. So before they walk in your door and grab a desk, you'll know who you're getting.
So let's say that I come to you, and we'll do a little role play. Let's say I come to you, I'm the CEO of a medium-sized company, and I have a sales team, and I'm not happy with their performance. What's the first thing you would advise?
Well, what I would advise, actually, I would ask.
Okay.
And I always like the do you think it could be? So it would be something like this in the role play. Well, Mike, do you think it could be a selection process? And normally the answer is, well, I don't know.
Yeah.
Oh, do you think maybe it's a sales management issue and coaching? Well, I don't know. So you kind of get the gist of where it's going. And when you get to 5 or 6 I don't knows, then I would come back to you and say, well, Mike, I think what I would recommend is a sales team evaluation, because we need to identify where the gaps and deficiencies are. Are they with the sales team and the skill set on that team? Or is it sales management and their ability to coach consistently and coach effectively to level up those skill sets on that team? And usually the outcome is, yes, I think that's a great idea. How do we move forward with a sales team evaluation?
Okay. And so then what would next step be if I was considering engaging with you to help fix my sales team woes?
Well, actually, it's a very insightful and simple process. It's really a matter of getting the names, email addresses of the sales leaders, sales managers, and salespeople. And then we send out a very soft landing letter to the team that, hey, we're making this investment in you to help grow your career and grow your skill set. So it takes the defense away from normally people who hear they're going to be getting an assessment. And once that's done, we send out the assessment, and then the results are back within a week. And then we do our analysis and run our logarithms, and then hence we produce the results and the findings. And the important step I left out there is this is specific to your A player. In other words, you and I create a selling profile on what you say your A player looks like. And then with the questionnaire answered and the selling profile, the answers are married. And from there we get the findings. Who is the who are really the A players on your team?
So do you at all help the CEO to understand perhaps what the good qualities would be of a sales A player?
Yes, we measure actually 21 sales specific competencies, and it then has 8 to 12 attributes behind each of those competencies. So we're delivering 288 data points on each person. And so we'll pinpoint exactly, self-reported by the salesperson, sales manager, and sales leader, where their gaps and deficiencies are.
And that's really interesting. And all of this is done through you assess the people. You've got a profile set up, and then you basically match the requirements of the profile to who has those based off of the assessment.
Yep, we're a certified partner of OMG, which is a company that basically is 32 years old and has been updating their logarithms forever. And what makes us significantly different than Myers-Briggs or DISC, we're not personality, we're not behavioral, and we're not aptitude. We are strictly a predictor of sales.
That's really interesting because the first part of it, I have a program called the Decentralized A-Team method, and I teach tech executives. Essentially, I teach them how to get more out of their team without, overworking them, without overworking themselves. And I also teach them to improve communications with their CEO and their management team. And I also teach them how to set boundaries so that they don't work continually 80 hours a week. I mean, I invented this plan when I was a CTO and I was working close to 100 hours a week, almost every week. And it was just not sustainable. And I started thinking it through. And first thing I do is I assess the leadership style of the CTO and any key players on their team. And so it's kind of interesting to me that you're doing an assessment as well, because I find, I used to be kind of anti-assessment because of things like, Myers-Briggs and DISC. It's like, all right, so because I have this personality, supposedly I can't do this job, BS, I can do this job in my sleep. In fact, I've done this job and you're telling me I shouldn't be able to do the job, that kind of thing.
Well, it's interesting you bring, I'm sorry, go ahead. I was saying, it's interesting you bring that up because I have a client and the CEO actually said to me, this was a couple months ago, he said, where were you 10 years ago, 15 years ago, when my HR department was forcing me to do Myers-Briggs? And I'd ask them several months later, okay, what did you do with that? Because my revenues aren't going up. My team's not improving. What exactly did that data really prove? So it proves that they're a nice person or they belong with the culture. Right? So the other unique thing that we do here, Mike, is we break it down into 3 tiers, I'm going to call it. The first tier is will to sell. The 2 important factors there and attributes are desire, the fire in the belly, the grit, if you will, The second is commitment, which is probably number one, because that is, I will do whatever it takes legally and ethically to get the job done without conditions. So that's what I call tier one. Tier two is the sales DNA. This is how we're wired between the ears, okay, and what our behaviors are made up of and what our beliefs are from a sales perspective. And then the third tier are the competencies or the skills. And what many companies recognize after working with us is that so many companies start out by trying to fix skills. And if their sales DNA or their will to sell, as we call it, the desire and commitment is not there, you can beat your head against the wall all day long. You're never going to fix their skills if they don't have those other two already in place.
No, that totally makes sense. And that's exactly why, like, sometimes the problem with my clients isn't their team, it's them. It's the way they manage. Nobody likes a micromanager, for instance, and a lot of them are micromanagers. I want to be copied on the emails for this, and I want you to come by my office and tell me when X happens. I teach them to do the opposite. I teach them to let their team make decisions. You've got a job description, and if it says you're responsible for X and something happens with X, you have a budget. If it's broken and it costs $10,000 and my budget is $5,000, I have a problem. Now I'll go to my boss. But if I have a budget of $10,000 and it costs $5,000, I no longer have a problem. I'm responsible for X. I can have X fixed with the budget of money I have. And too many CTOs and leaders, they don't let their staff do that, right? And so, like, I find it interesting, like, you broke down the sales into three tiers. And I'd have to agree with you. Like, you can be the most skilled salesperson on earth, know every single I to dot and T to cross. But if you don't have the will to sell and you don't have that DNA, you're just banging your head against a wall. It's going to sound strange, but it almost sounds like a car mechanic without the tools to fix the car. Like, they have the knowledge, they don't have the tools in their hands to go do it. And in this case, the tools are more, here and here, but they have to have those tools, right?
Exactly. And the second offering we have then is the hiring process, which we have, that is basically, hey, let's find out who we really have before we put them in the seat here in the company, right? And what we truly believe in our vernacular and how we approach this is the goals of a successful hiring process. You want to optimize, okay, your selling recruiting process in a structured, repeatable process, okay? And what does that really pertain to? Well, it goes to the bottom line, really, because it can cost, in one of the studies I read a few months ago, it can cost up to $500,000 per role. And it's like, well, what do you mean by that? Well, if you hire someone and they're not the right person, and they are in a territory for a year, and they put up a goose egg at the end of the year, you've just paid a salary, you've paid benefits, you've paid a lot, and now what about opportunity cost? You've left that territory dry up. In hiring salespeople and sales managers, it's very difficult because compared to any other role in the company, these guys have startup challenges to learn the products, go out there, sell them. They're facing competition daily. And then another very important thing for at least a salesperson really is having resilience. There was just this is a few years old, but the number one attribute of a salesperson is having resilience to bounce back. And for salespeople or sales managers, and that's finding who can coach, who can hold their salespeople accountable. How do they motivate them? And with all these difficult things to figure out, very hard to figure out in a couple 1-hour interviews, right? So in the process that we have, we first help you write that selling profile like we did for the team evaluation, but now it's for the candidate. So it's a little bit different, but we help you then create that selling profile for your A player in that role. So you might have, one of my recent customers has 6 selling roles. Yeah, enterprise rep, mid-tier rep, inside sales rep. So they had 6 different ones. And then what we do next is we have them write a job description. We'll help them obviously do this, but the most important part here, excuse me, is be honest. Be honest about what that job description is. Okay. Next component in this hiring process that you want to make sure you have right: sourcing. Where are you trying to find the candidates? What pond are you fishing in? Because you better be fishing in the right pond, or you're going to get the wrong people coming to apply for the job. The next important piece, I think, is automation. And that's not just, for the resumes, it's the email responses, it's the sales candidate assessment, being able to then integrate it with your ATS system if you have one. So wherever you can leverage a tech stack, you'll want to do. And then the next part that we emphasize in our process, the sales candidate assessment is only 1/3 of the process. You've got to have the rest of this correct and have it structured and understood and followed by all. Because our assessment, as an example, what it's going to do is produce 3 results. It's going to say recommended, it's going to say worthy of consideration, and it's going to say not recommended. We're going to kick out about 50% of the candidates. We're going to just reject them based on how they responded to the assessment. So now you've cut the pool down to X number, and you can run as many of these candidate assessments as you want on as many people as you want within the particular role. And then once that happens, now we get into the fun part, if you will, right? Now you're organizing your hiring team and you're discussing how we're going to use these resumes and what we're going to look at. Is their resume consistent with the results they just handed to us, which were self-reported? How does the resume compare against LinkedIn, what they're writing on LinkedIn? So again, you're creating these questions then next for all the hiring members. And more importantly, you're creating a scorecard, and everyone has the same scorecard. Then what we do is in our workshop that we teach this process, it's a 10-minute phone interview. And I emphasize phone interview, not Zoom, because what we're doing here is we're ruling out biases. That is such it runs rampant in hiring, and I think we all know it. So if you're only on a phone call and you have maybe 5 simple questions for them, you'll be able to find out, did they do the research? Do they sound like they're a fit? Okay. i.e. asking them, so what did you think of the job description? And they say they didn't read it. Well, there's maybe clue number 1. Do they really want this job, or are they just out fishing themselves? And so only the ones that pass that phone interview, then they get to the face-to-face calls. Okay. And on those face-to-face calls, then we're walking through the candidates that made it past. And then, of course, we get to the final interview. Okay. And now really they've made it past the hiring members of the hiring team. And then we're going to now we're going to be selling the opportunity. Normally this is the selling manager, because now they've passed all the other tests. They've passed the red face test, so to speak. And now you're really selling the opportunity to them if this is the person you've come down to and you want. And what is so important is once you get to that point, you need to reiterate the role they just accepted. I've had more than a few situations where the person quit or they let him go because they basically said, this is not what I signed up for. So you've got to make sure you reiterate what they just accepted before you pour a bunch of money into them and invest a bunch of money into the person that accepted the job, and make sure they understand what the responsibilities are. And then I'd have to say, Mike, one of the most important, again, at the end here is onboarding. Onboarding is missed by so many companies. They hire what they think is the A player or the rock star, and they put them out to the wolves, and then wonder in 90 days or 6 months why the person hasn't sold anything yet. So what's important here is the 30, 60, 90-day rule, as I call it, which is who does what to help develop this new person, making sure they understand the company values, making understand they understand their role, and then having a team of people around them that help them grow and understand how to sell for our company. So that is basically the sales process that we teach and we encourage people to follow. And it's a team approach. It's not, I mean, one of the funniest ones I heard was a customer not too long ago said the sales manager pulled over on the side of the road, had a 15-minute interview with the person, and called her and said, I think I want to hire him. She said, isn't that your first interview? He said, yeah, the guy's great. 15 minutes, a phone call on the side of the road, and wants to hire. So you can see that it's, again, it needs a structured process that everybody follows.
So, all right. Hopefully I'm going to stretch your brain a little bit with this question.
Sure.
So there's this whole movement called AntiWork Movement that's going on. And to be honest, it's spawning a new podcast for me because some of the stuff I read is just ridiculous. I literally read one this morning that asked, the subject line was, is working 9 to 5 simply too long, or am I being entitled for thinking that? But yeah, you're being entitled. Whoever you were entitled for thinking that. I mean, my friend, she said, oh, I have to work 9 to 5. And then it takes 30 minutes to get home from work. I won't get home until 5:30. Then I have to be in bed by 10 in order to be up the next morning by 7 to go back to work. So I won't have time to do my 1 hour of ballet practice and my 1 hour workout and my 1 hour walk and my half an hour of reading. You're right, you won't. Oh well. But with that in mind, with people out there that like, especially you see a lot of gig workers complaining about, oh, I'm not making enough money. How do you get salespeople who are willing to like work on a smaller salary plus a commission or something of that nature? How do you get the people that are interested in that with this kind of attitude in the world right now?
Well, there's several ways you can approach that. I think one is get them excited about the company and what they're doing and what they're doing. And then I think it's always important. One of the things I didn't mention on the onboarding, let them understand the growth path. How do you grow? How do you become a manager? How do you become a leader in the company? And I think those are important things to make sure they're focused on when they accept the position within the company. And there's going to be a lot of, not to dive in the weeds right now, but there's a lot of things that we will point out in those 288 data points that you'll be able to see how committed they are. One is called sales longevity. We'll tell you how long, this person is probably going to stay with you.
Okay, now let me ask you this one. So like I've had clients, as I've mentioned, I do something similar to what you're doing. I have an assessment of their leadership style. I teach them, where to fish for potential prospects for positions that they're trying to fill. And I've had at least 2 clients say to me, that sounds like a lot of work. Why am I going through all that work? And then I say, well, you haven't been doing that work already, right? And they say, right. How's that working for you? How's it working for you? So what do you say to somebody who says, oh God, my gosh, Jeff, that's just way too much work for us to go through to fill a position?
That's okay. And I've had that one myself too. And, it's right now what you need to think about is what is it costing the company if it doesn't work out? I gave the example at the beginning of the discussion. It was, and the name escapes me of who did the study, but upwards of $500,000. You hire the wrong person, they stick around for a year, you paid all their benefits, and a year later, they've got a goose egg up there. So now you got to include opportunity costs. This, i.e. this territory was driving 350,000 a year, and it's all dried up now since we hired this new person. So it is worth going through the effort to hire the right person and find the right person instead of just hiring anybody who fits the chair or fits the suit.
Yeah, that always seems to be what people miss, is the cost of hiring somebody, having them stay for a certain period of time. And I mean, that could be 3 days, it could be 3 months, it could be 3 years. There's a reason why people bail out sooner than you would expect. And at the very least, that has to be fixed at the very least. And usually the fix to that is the hiring process. You're just not hiring a person who's meant to work for you. Like we actually have an interesting situation in our business right now. And we have a person who is living in a third world country. They're from Australia, but they're living in a third world country right now. Their choice. They love it there. They go surfing, and all this stuff. And at first, all they wanted was like $5 an hour to work. And we're like, that's nice. $5 an hour. Okay, good. We can do that. And they're really good at what they do, really attentive to what they do. And so last year, beginning of the year, this year, actually, at the beginning of the year, we doubled their pay to $10 an hour. And we said, you're just worth a lot more than the $5 an hour. We have to give you $10 an hour. Well, now she's coming back saying the cost of living issues have hit there, and she's coming back saying, oh, I need to make more money. And what I find interesting is the first thought isn't how many more hours can you give me? The first thought is how much more can you pay me? And so I told my wife, I said, I think we made a mistake when we hired this person originally, because we believed they were, because they were offering a lower pay rate for the job, we believed they were a good fit for the job. Then we increased their pay rate, which theoretically should make the job even more desirable, right? Now I get to do the same job, only I'm making twice as much money. But instead, it's almost like they want to work less hours, but make more money.
That point combined with the last one you made is, sometimes it's the management or manager that hangs on to the person too long. After 6 months, 8 months, the manager knows, he or she knows it's not working out, but then another 6, 8 months goes by and this person's still around.
And in this case, it's worked out. The problem is becoming now, I just doubled your pay 6 months ago. I'm not, and even if I gave you a pay raise right now, it might be $1 an hour, and that's a 10% pay raise. Nobody's squawking at that today. But I just told my wife, I said, we're going to have this conversation, and I'm not offering more money. I'm literally, and I mean, I've already preemptively messaged her and said, if you need more pay, then you need to tell us how many more hours you can work. So I kind of planted the seed that don't think you're going to be getting a raise. You want more money, you got to work for it. I mean, that's what I do. I've got multiple businesses running because the amount of money I could make at a job wasn't what I wanted, nor was it what I wanted to do. So, all right. As compared to other industries and other positions that you could fill, how important do you think it is to follow a process like this for salespeople as compared to any other role? Or do you think it's equal?
Well, I think it's equal, actually. I think there should be a process for all roles in the company. But as I started out, in the beginning, that the sales role is such in my mind, I've been in it all my life, but I think it's a little bit more difficult because of all the different dynamics. Look at the back end team in most big companies. I work for, EMC, Oracle, and some bigger companies. I mean, we had just support surrounding us, right? And look at all those people you're paying to support that salesperson to go out there and sell your products and your services. Well, that's putting a lot on the company also to hire the right person, and the management team to hire the right person, because you don't want to be putting someone out there. In fact, I've got an example of, to the comment of letting go people. I had one VP call me from a company, and what we do is the roles that we create, the selling profiles, we compare those roles across with their answers. And he had called me and said, Jeff, Sean is not me making it as an enterprise rep, but I love this kid. He says, can you pull that date out again? And did he score well in any other area? Pulled it out, said, yeah, he scored great in renewals. He goes, you made my day. I'm putting him on the renewals team today. So sometimes it's they have a seat on the bus, but making sure they are in the right
wrong seat.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's, I haven't heard that term in a while. Well, we're kind of around the same age, I think. So the terms that I've heard people use, and that's a big one. And I actually love that analogy of the bus, because, people don't always grasp what you're trying to say when you say, well, maybe they don't belong in that position. Maybe they belong in this position. And then you're like, well, but you gave them a seat on the bus, which is good. You like this person, but you sat them in the wrong place, put them somewhere where it's the right place. But okay, now I agree with you that I think it's important for all positions to go through a formal process for hiring. I also wonder though, like, what happens when you okay, I always tell tech people this. We have what we call database administrators. They're really different type of people. To give you an example, I once had a database administrator when I was a CTO, and I was facing a deadline. And it was like Thursday, and the deadline was Friday morning. And he came to me and he said, Mike, I'm going to need 2 more days. And I said, wow, I'm not aware of any issue. Why do you need 2 more days? And he said, because this query right here, I know I can make it about a millisecond faster. I chuckled and I said, hey, that's great, but we're not holding up the launch for a millisecond. We're just not. But why not? I said, because nobody's going to notice the millisecond. Like, nobody is going to notice it. You're going to notice it, but nobody else is going to notice it. So they think differently, right? Like that millisecond was everything to that guy. Nobody else cared. In fact, I guarantee you, no one, when we released the software, said, it could have been a millisecond faster. Nobody. And I think salespeople are similar. I think you guys have a different way of looking at a job and looking at work. In fact, quite honestly, I wish most people would have the work ethic of most salespeople that I've met. I think there's something about putting, like, when you pay someone a commission for selling something, you're essentially giving them a bonus for working hard and being successful. And I think there's something to be said for that. My first CTO position, I got paid $75,000 a year, but I consistently made $350,000 a year because I got bonuses. And trust me, I made sure that there were systems in place, that my staff was doing what they were supposed to do. I was doing what I was supposed to do because I wanted to max out those bonuses. And I know salespeople do the same thing. They're trying to get closes it's a numbers game, and they've got to hit a certain number of people in order to close a certain number of deals. And it's just different. The way you guys think, it's different. So do you ever run into a situation where, like, you run the assessment and you're like, well, you have that other open position over here, they'd be better for that? Have you ever run into that?
Yeah. Oh yeah, definitely. And so we will point that out and say, you might want to consider, Joe or Susie for this other position. They score really well over here if they're not happy where, they're at today. Or if they seem to be struggling, you point that out to them. But the customer now has all this data at their fingertips. Sometimes I just have to point them in the way or in the direction. But yeah, you're right about that. I'm thinking about your story, which was great. And a salesperson, it's the compensation plan. It's a whole other topic, right? But that drives their behavior. Where are you going to pay me most? And
yeah,
so I'm going to go.
Yeah, and I mean, you can always tell too. Like, long time ago, we had this business that we were trying to run, and we were trying to hire a salesperson for that business. And I met with this guy multiple times. I ran him through some of the assessments that I use, and he seemed like he'd be okay. But then when it got down to it, that support that you're talking about, he was not used to working without that support. It was like, hey, do you have this? Yeah, it's in Google Sheets. Let me share it with you. Oh, no. Can you look this up for me? What? Why am I looking that up for you? You go look it up. Well, I'm trying to make money here. Well, so am I. Like, we both have our jobs. He was just used to having, like, a secretary and, I'm like an administrative assistant and a team behind him to push him so that he could just focus on selling, not the right person for the job we were trying to fill. Right. So tell me, like, you started out your career as a salesperson. What
Yeah.
kind of transitioned you into a situation now where essentially you're helping businesses hire sales teams and improve their sales teams? What made you transition into that?
Great question. So I actually started using this in the 2010, 2011 area. I was introduced to the tool actually by my wife. She was the certified partner, and we started using it, and I started getting tremendous results with it. And then in 2020, 2019, 2020, she said, Jeff, I've got this product that it's not taking off like I want. Would you be interested in joining me and making the go at it? And I said, wow. I said, really? You want me to work with you? She goes, yeah. So I jumped into it, loved it. And I've always loved the coaching and developing part of my career. And so it was kind of a natural, to now come over and start talking to CEOs, CROs about what we can do for them in a very affordable and simplistic manner with just very insightful data to level up their sales teams. Or the candidate assessment site, know who you're hiring before they walk in your door and grab a desk.
Awesome. Well, this has been a really insightful conversation. Can you let people know where they can find you if they're interested in reaching out?
Sure. Let me go into share screen here.
Sure.
So anyway, again, can you see that?
Yep.
Okay. So again, my name is Jeff Hines with Accelerated Sales and Leadership. My cell phone number there, and there is the company website. And again, the company is 22 years old, so we're not new at this. And then you see at the bottom, Objective Management Group, which we're in the top 5% of their sellers and partners, which is the company has been partnered with them over 15 years now. So it's a great tool and a great opportunity to really evaluate and find out what kind of a team you have in front of you and with you and what their capabilities really are.
Nice. Well, this will also get into the show notes and the description of the video. I'll make sure that I actually took some notes down here of some things that you said to also add to the notes. You gave a lot of great information today. I really appreciate your time. So
no, this is great. Thank you.
All right. Well, thank you so much for tuning in to Gaining the Technology Leadership Edge. We hope you've had a great time with us, learning everything you need to know to stay ahead of the technology curve. Remember, be curious, be updated on all the latest trends, and show them who's the boss. And until next time, we'll be back with plenty more techie tips and tricks so you can stay on top of your game.